I'm delighted to be able to watch my parents and my husband's father thriving in their 80s. They've embraced their golden years in a way that continues to give to others and to know that their actions, words, and passion to help others make a difference. On my last visit to my parents, it was an unexpected trip, and so my dad was not able to find someone to take his paper route that he does in the middle of the night. And he is awake while many of us are asleep, and then he sleeps in 2 stints during the day. On this visit, he was trying to get in his visiting time with me while maintaining his sleep arrangements that keep him functioning. We were talking about the stress of the hours, but he delights in the quiet time, his chance to see amazing sunrises and connect with other paper carriers who work the late night shift. He exclaimed to me that having a purpose and a connection was important, and it really kept him going. As much as the hours are hard, I had to agree with him. I should add that both of my parents teach Tai Chi several days a week, and they're very devoted to their club. They both practice on their own, as well as stay sharp and ready for teaching, and they know how to work through their physical challenges of stiff knees and hands, sore backs and necks, as they both have set a routine that they're very devoted to. My father-in-law, he jumped out of a plane. He did a tandem jump last month to raise money for hospice, and then he went soaring down a zip line. So his work with the Lions Club for decades had kept him involved in the community with many worthwhile projects. And he was an RCMP, so he is retired from that profession, but these are the other things that he was doing in his life. He's still devoted to supporting community events and activities, and he is one of the most active members at his apartment complex. So there are many stories of exuberant seniors who run circles around us younger folk, but I want to dive into some of the insights of today's guest, returning to share more of her wisdom as a medical doctor and the patients she's watched grow old over the years and thrive or withered as they've aged, is Dr. Marianne Bette. In our last podcast episode, we discussed her book, Living with a Grieving Heart. And today, I'm excited to hear about what Marianne has learned across her years helping others. So retiring from her practice in Connecticut, she brings to us some of the wisdom and stories that are part of a new book. You are listening to Be Well with Michelle Greenwell, and this is sponsored by the Cape Breton Tea Company, as well as Dance Debut Inc. Please welcome author and family counselor, Marianne Bette. Hello, Marianne, thank you.
So good to see you again.
It's awesome to be talking. So let's dive into a couple of the pieces we put in place so that our listeners get a balance and feel rested and rejuvenated. So I've pulled from my card deck. So this is the Affirmations for the Body and Biofield deck. So I'm just holding up the card. For those on the podcast, there is a ribbon of color on the front, which represents mother and child. And this is part of the photography work that Tanya Levy does in our series. And I'm just going to hold up now the card that I pulled, which, depending on how I hold it, it pulls different colors, but it's full of blue, white, yellow, pink, purple, black, green, a couple greens and yellow up in the corners. And this is actually for the elbow. So we're talking about the space in the joint and how the elbow works. So pull towards you and get in close to your experience, or let go and move out of the way. But you can't do both at the same time. And I was thinking about our preamble before we hit the record button on the podcast and talking about how sometimes we try to do so much, and sometimes we're always pulling that closer and closer and holding tight, which creates pain and all kinds of uncomfortable things in our joints. So that's what we have to pull us forward into this conversation. And what have you got in your teacup today?
Well, in my teacup, I have right now, I have water because I had a cup of tea earlier. And when I do these talking to you, Michelle, I get very excited and then I'm warm. So I thought I'm going to put water in there this time to keep myself cool.
And then you're holding on to a mug that's where you are located at the moment.
I'm at my brother and sister-in-law's in Georgia, and I took her favorite mug, which says, "My favorite people call me Nana." That's Nana is the grandmother name in the Irish tradition, so she's
She's known
that's
as
her.
Nana.
She's a Nana.
It's beautiful. It's lovely all the different names that you hear as an endearment for grandparents, um,
Yes.
and and how those names are said. It's so lovely um, to listen to the way people put it into their voice or into the conversation. I have put in honeybee. And
Mhm.
Honeybee is about playfulness, boosting the spirit, finding joy. I just think of like a little fairy flitting around. And that's kind of what this one feels like when I'm sipping away at it. So this does come from the Cape Breton Tea Company. It's one of my favorites. And it also goes with our book, Bioenergetic Essentials, which is a free ebook on canbewell.org if people are interested and they've heard me say that. You just go to the front page and it says free ebook on it, and you just click and that'll come
Oh,
up. Yeah. So, with that, cheers. Thank you for coming
yeah.
and joining in the conversation today, and
Mhm.
we'll get started. And I have it, it says happy 25th on the back. That was from our anniversary a few years back, over a
Oh,
decade.
look at
But
that.
it's a picture of my husband and I when we got married, and cycling was something that we did together. And yeah, so it's fun to remind myself of the things I used to do.
Right, right. We
Okay.
speaking of cycling, we when when we retired and we started to travel around with our truck camper, I have arthritis in my neck and I couldn't on the bike I couldn't bend over and do this for very long and pedal, with all the other problems. So we bought electric bikes and
Mhm.
I put the handlebars way up in the air so I can sit up and we pedal until we're going uphill or get too tired and then we just press the button. We go along electronically, but we still get out on the bikes. It's like one of the many accommodations you make if you want to keep enjoying the things you enjoy.
Mhm. Mhm. And how easy it would be with the hills, right? Because it's never flat. How easy it would be to just not ride anymore.
Well, you could just give it
Yeah.
up, but then once you get on the bike again, um, it, it's such an exhilarating feeling. You're like, I can't give this up. I can't. I can't give it up. I'll have to come up with some way of continuing to move with a bicycle because that pace. I mean, I'm not doing any racing, so at that pace, it's just very nice. It's like a fast trot or run, and you see so much at that pace.
You do. And you're out and about and you're seeing people, conversations, different people to have those conversations with. And it's a way too, like you said, you get into that little habit of going out and you just miss it if you're not going to be going.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
got to tell you a funny story. My husband Gene, uh, he was somewhere with the car, so I didn't have the car, and I was supposed to have my mammogram. So I said, no problem. I'll just go down on the bike. It's only a couple 3 miles from here. I'll just go on the bike. So I put on my helmet and I get on the bike and I go down and I don't know, I'm having a great time because it's the leaves are starting to fall off and everything's so beautiful and it was one of those crisp fall days and I get to the imaging place and I park my bike and I go in. I get my helmet on my hands and I get in there. They have a new check-in. It's all electronic, and so I'm like, oh, and then it says take a picture of your insurance card. So I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, oh, and I'm out. I'm in the foyer. I'm not really in the place yet. So I put my bike helmet down and my this, and I'm trying to figure it out. And this guy comes, a young guy, must be maybe 23, comes out. He's dropping somebody off. He comes in, says, "Can I help you with something?" And I said, "Well, I'm just seeing you have a new system here, and I'm, just figuring it out." Well, he immediately starts pressing these. I'll get it set up for you. And he presses the buttons and he says, "How do you spell your name?" And I looked at him and I said, I think I can do this. And I'm thinking, I'm 75 years old. I just drove down here on my electric bike, and I think I can figure this out. But I was telling my husband later how insulted I felt because he just looked at my age and looked at me peering into how to take a picture on this computer of my insurance card, and he just assumed that I couldn't do it.
Hmm.
And maybe I couldn't have done it, but I wanted to try first. So I was thinking about how sometimes people's idea about you being older um, it changes the way that they react to you, and sometimes it's not the way you want.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
wasn't the way I wanted. Here I was congratulating myself. I got down to the imaging place on my bike. I had my bicycle helmet in my hand. He was like, "Here's an old lady. She needs help." I was like, "Okay, just gonna laugh that one off."
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting too, because you think about from the other side of that, when somebody younger even offers, first of all, they've noticed, which is
Yes,
really lovely,
yes,
and that they want to help because a lot of times they just walk by and don't.
yes. That's
So
true.
that there's that opportunity in there, but then there's that fine line of what kind of conversation do you start so that you can be helpful, but you don't overstep, right? And
Yeah,
navigating that piece. Yeah.
yeah. And this is new for me that people or like you're someplace like say you're at the grocery store or something. Can I help you out with that, ma'am? And I think, oh my God, I'm so old. They're asking me. I don't feel that way,
Yeah.
but I'm like, I must look like I need help
Yeah.
because of just my age or my hair color or
Yeah.
whatever, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It's something to accept that.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at accepting that.
Well, and I don't think very many people are. And I know in Tai Chi class, I will say, if this is too much for you and it takes you over 40% effort, please sit down and do the exercise there because it'll be better for you. And
Yeah.
you'll have somebody who's got a knee problem and they're hobbling around the room and they will not sit down.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
a defeat, and rather
Very much.
than thinking about how can I do better, we're thinking about how much we've lost or how we
Exactly.
can't do that anymore, or you don't want to admit to that next step, so you really try to grip it. And there's that elbow piece,
I
right?
was just going to say that same thing. There's the elbow piece of holding it tight and letting it go.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's something.
Yeah, which makes interesting of what kind of look can we give to a person in that situation, right? So to be able to look and say, I am struggling, could you take a moment and give me a hand? Or, or the nice to see you, I think I've got this, like how you could signal so
Yes.
that people have a way of knowing how they could respond. And I don't think we think of that either.
No, that's a great. It's like old age etiquette. And there should be a way of someone asking and a way that you can respond positively or negatively without anybody getting hurt, their
Mhm.
feelings hurt, really.
Mhm.
So yeah, yeah, that would be nice. That'd be nice.
And the other thing I'm thinking of too, because I carry a lot of bags into the Tai Chi class. So I'm always juggling a whole bunch of things, which I've done. And I juggled the
Correct.
bags, right? Diaper bags, kids'
That's right.
toys, costume
Yep.
bags. I've juggled a lot of bags over the years and narrowed down how to get into a building with one trip because I really don't like to take two trips. And
Right.
so when I think about when people offer, and I always say, no, it's fine, I've got it. But I'm
Yeah.
not realizing they would actually really like to help. And I'm
Yes.
not allowing for that. So there's that
Right.
not letting go part, and the
Right.
elbows are locked. Um, and so, two, to think on the other side of that, how can I best serve others by providing them the space to help? And I don't think seniors think of that either because they're too busy going, I'm not giving up.
Not old. Not that old yet. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
people do love to help. They love to help.
And they do. And then you
Mhm.
have an interesting conversation,
Mhm.
because it's no longer, no, 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 I don't need any help. I'm fine. And then people just carry on and then you
Right.
struggle. to try to do what you're
Cool.
doing. But
Yeah.
if you actually stopped and said, "This is lovely. Where are you from?"
Yep.
Whatever your conversation
For the
happens to
whole
be.
thing. Yes.
Yeah. And then what have you offered to that other person that makes their day better? We just don't know. And it's just even that you acknowledge they helped, you know?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or just saying thanks for offering. That's so sweet, but I think I got it.
Yeah.
I think I'll do that next time. It's still so new to me. I know my kids try to do that. Oh, mom, you're so slow, and then blah blah blah, and it's all done, and I haven't learned a darn thing. So yeah, I'm going to try that next time. Good advice, Michelle.
Well, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there and,
There you go, girl. That's what it's
and
all about.
it is. And just really, since there isn't really a manual of how do we navigate this and how do we gracefully be in both places, you know?
I always, I had patients that were very kind of graceful in their aging. And I thought, I'm going to age gracefully too. Well, guess what? I am not. I am going kicking and screaming. I don't want to be old. I don't want to admit to the things that aren't working good. My older brother and I, when we get together, he says he has a rule when he gets together with his friends. They have a 5-minute, what he calls an organ recital, where they can talk about what's not working in all their organs. And then in 5 minutes, it's over. That's it. Because no one wants to hear all the complaints that anybody had. Maybe, if there's something essential, it would be out in 5 minutes. And then after that, it's like, okay, that's enough. Now we have to enjoy our time together, focused on all the other important things in life.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So 5-minute organ recital is one good thing to do.
And that's something with my parents because they do Tai Chi. We actually don't hardly ever talk about ailments.
Isn't that great?
We might talk about the weather quickly, just, is it raining today or have you got sun today? Something simple like that.
Right.
But then we talk a lot about Tai Chi and movement patterns. And so we really have a subject that we can dive into where we don't have to fall back onto how are you feeling today?
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Very empowering.
It is. It is because it's all about movement, and that's your whole thing is movement and movement and the body and the mind moving together and what that does. That synergy it's a great synergy.
Hmm.
Individually, it's good, but together, it's more powerful.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me, you're on the road of writing another book.
Well, I'm on the road. I'm supposed to be writing another book. I've just been enjoying the heck out of myself. But I'm gonna.
You
I,
got
I,
on the road.
I right. Well, when Gene and I travel now, it's got to be different. Like I said, some people could make the 15-hour car ride in a day. My younger daughters are like, "Well, mom, it's only 15." No, 15 hours for me is like a 5-day travel if I want to do it comfortably. And
Mhm.
so that's one thing we do. And then we notice that uh, nowadays, I don't know if it's like this. It can't be like this for you guys up in Cape Breton. But down here, you get on these highways or freeways, and there's more tractor trailer trucks than there are any other vehicle on the road. And they're very long. Sometimes they're in tandem. And it's a different type of fatigue that comes over you when you're driving like on the roads like that. So we notice an hour and a half the most. Then we have to stop and stretch and switch drivers, and you're refreshed.
Mhm.
So after we do that 2 or 3 times, that's as much as we want to do in a day because
Mhm.
we'd like to go someplace pretty and go for a walk and get set up for watching the sun go down and maybe have a glass of wine or, get ready for dinner or whatever we're going to do. And boy, that works out. That's a wonderful way of doing
Mhm. Mhm. And it's interesting, because the car does beep after you've been in the car for 2 hours and
it.
tells you you should get out of the car.
It
So you're
does?
you're already in that place of knowing This is about where we can go. And
Ooh,
it's interesting because I often will, I'll tell my Tai Chi students, um, know how long you can sit for, and then don't sit till you hit the wall, but sit for less
right,
than that, right? So if you know that in 2 hours those limbs are going to be tightening up, then
exactly.
then get out of the car at 1:40
Mm-hmm.
instead of waiting till 2 when you feel that way. Rejuvenate, and then, like you said, change drivers, whatever you're going to do. But you can also engage in a couple little activities, and that can completely reboot the system so
Sure
that
can.
you're ready to go again, rather than so many seniors, just what we were talking about before, like we were raised to go, 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 go,
Yeah, and
and
ignore
finish the
your own
job.
self and don't think about yourself or your body. Just think about the task at hand. Yeah,
Exactly. And instead of thinking about, I have to finish the task, think about what is providing me the way to build the energy. And then once I've got it built, I can keep going. But
right.
instead of like driving the car, you drive the car till you're exhausted, and then you say, now what should I do? But instead you go, I'll drive the car, and then I'll rejuvenate myself, and then I can drive the car. And then you might
Mm-hmm.
still only go the same distance. But what you're saying is then you start thinking about the sunset, you're thinking about the meal, you're thinking about the socializing, the relaxation part, instead of the, I want to get there. Because then when you get there, that's usually when everybody goes, I'm so exhausted, I've got to go to bed. And then you can't enjoy
Yeah,
anything. So
exactly.
you've
You've
pushed
got
yourself.
And one thing I found with my older patients, I would tell them, um, go by time. You're very similar to what you're saying. I would say if you're, don't go by the job. If you're looking out there and you say, I'm going to weed that garden, um, you need to say, I'm going to weed that garden for 20 minutes. And then I'm going to make sure I'm checking my back and I'm going to see how I am. And then I may do another 20 minutes or more. But I noticed you can't go out and just accomplish a task like you used to do.
Mhm.
It's the same kind of a feeling that you're talking about. You lose your energy, you get disappointed in yourself that you can't accomplish the job, and you start to have a negative thing coming back on you. I'm older and I can't do this, and yada yada. And you have to not do it that way. You just have to go by time,
Mhm.
and it's so much more gentle to the body.
Yes. Yes. And isn't that, that's really where we want to be, because when we're not gentle to the body, we already know the repercussions.
We are
That's when the knees don't work, the back does act up, like you said, the neck. So there's all these places that have for a very long time held a lot of stress for us. And
right.
that opportunity to stop and say, okay, I don't need to hold the stress there anymore, and I can let
It
it
took
go.
me a while. I had to beat myself up pretty good before I learned that lesson. I mean, I would be lugging these. I mean, I'm a wild gardener. I've got about 6 big gardens, and I would mulch them and drag these 40-pound bags. And then pretty soon I couldn't drag the 40-pound bags. So what did I do? I cut them in half and I carried the 20-pound bags all around. And then one year I looked at it and I thought, the last time I did that, it took me 2 trips to the chiropractor and once to the deep masseuse to get myself better. I'm better off hiring somebody else to do this part of it, or else I have to stop doing something that I really love, which I'm not going to do. So I had to think of alternative ways of continuing to do. Maybe I don't have to do as much. Maybe I don't have to have that many gardens, or I don't have to put in that many vegetables or flowers, or, but I'm not going to stop having it. I'm just going to make it easier somehow. So
Mhm.
that helps a lot to think of it that way too.
Mhm. Mhm. And the other conversation I've had with a lot of my students too is, how is it you want to come out the other side of it, right?
Yes,
So rather than you push, and then you're in a position where you're too sick to take care of the building, the house, the
right.
farm, if you're still living on the farm, and someone else has to make the decision for you, it's time for you to move. And you waited too long. So
Yeah.
really looking forward and going, okay, let me be realistic. Here's
Mhm.
here's when I start to notice these things, this is when I need to start making decisions differently. And
Mhm.
then being prepared of what that looks like.
That is huge. What you just said is a huge thing. And it requires, number one, that you take the time to reflect, you know, and that's something we weren't taught. Uh, but you do want to have that time to reflect. Okay, what are my priorities, and what's the best way for me to go about those? You know. So when my daughter said, "Well, how come you're leaving so early to come down here?" I said, "Well, because we're just going to take our time. If we get tired, we're going to pull over and take a nap." you know, I said, and I keep saying to my husband, "We're retired. We are not just on a 2 week vacation.
That's
We can just take our time."
exactly. Yes.
There's some beauty in that. There's some real beauty in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then all the times that you didn't have to see the scenery, or to
Exactly.
stop at the little stands along the way,
Yep.
because you were in the rush to get to the end, which was your
Yes.
destination piece. Yeah. It really
Yep.
changes the trip. Yeah.
We were just talking today when my husband Gene and I, we've only been married 6 years, so we were talking about how when we first got together, one of the big things we both love to do is be outdoors and to camp. So we planned this camping trip, and he had it figured out because he's an engineer. He had it figured out where we could go 300 miles a day, and that means we could stop here, 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 and here on the way out to California, and let's make reservations at these places. And I was like, I don't I don't think I can do that. I said, because I might be going this way and then suddenly I see a road over there that I have to get on. And if I get there, if it's really good, I want to stay a couple of days. And he just looked at me like that didn't make sense to him. But what he was saying didn't make sense to me either. But we've gotten around now where we have a very nice blend because he's better with the timing and I'm better with finding the fun places to go that we both love and enjoy, you know, and so that's made it fun.
That's interesting because I too, as couples age together, you don't age the same and your
No,
interests completely change. And
yes,
so that opportunity to look at what are the gifts that each of us brings to this conversation instead of I just want to do it this way because I know that's the way I
because it
want to do it.
worked for me before, and before you came along, I've been doing it for 20 years, and it works great. Well, guess what? We have to reconsider these things,
Yeah.
and now we laugh so much. I mean, in the beginning, it was like, well, what do you mean we're going to? No, we're not. No, we can't. What do you mean you're going to drive? No, I'm used to driving. Well, let's share the driving. This kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's all
That's
when you
beautiful.
realize it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot that but that what we said, the thing that helped us to come to a good compromise on most of these things is we just wanted to be together in these beautiful places, and exactly how we got there and when we got there and then what we got there, how many times we stopped for gas or a bathroom, it didn't really matter, you know.
Hmm.
So you could eventually just let go of that stuff. It's
Yeah.
that same thing, pulling in what you want, letting go what doesn't work with
Yeah.
your elbow card.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's coming in handy, isn't it?
it sure is. Yeah.
So I'm hoping the listeners are thinking about, as we're kind of weaving through this conversation, the ways that they've been thinking about things and holding on, and what are those little habits that have kind of set up and have pulled people in. So just to be able to think, it's funny how the elbows are. Sometimes it's the feet, where are you afraid to step forward?
Uh-huh.
Where do you maybe step back? Um,
Right.
and today, when I was working with some of the seniors in a Tai Chi class, it was actually about the side to side things. And then that's, and being able to turn from side to side, people think they can turn that way, but they actually start to avoid it if it's not comfortable. And so
Mhm.
when you bring that back in, then what do you notice beside you? Like you said, on that road, hey, there's a road. Let's take that one, see what happens, right? But if you're not, if you're like the forward backward person where it's always in this direction, that
Uh-huh.
creates that space of just staying on the road and not
Right.
letting, we call it the nuggets here in Cape Breton. So you don't let the nuggets in, which is you don't always know where you're going to end up.
Right. Oh, I'm all with that. I'm all with that. My girlfriend and I, knowing we were going to have this conversation, I said to her, "So what are you noticing now that she's just newly retired?"
Mhm.
And she said, "What I try to do is say yes whenever possible, even if I sometimes feel like I'm on the verge of saying no. I don't, I'm not used to that, or I don't know how that would work." Or she says, "I try to say yes to everything because I found that works out so much better for me in the long run." And such a simple thing, it's such a simple thing to say, "Okay, I don't know, I don't know how to do that, or I don't know what that'll be, but yeah, let's go, let's give it a go." You know,
Yeah.
and that's another positive thing you can do being older.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that for myself, I've noticed when I go to say no or I want to say no, I've started actually asking, why is it I'm saying
Why?
no?
Yeah. Why am I saying
Right?
that?
And
It's
instead of just give your stock response and carry on, but actually looking at it and realizing it's an old pattern. You're afraid to
exactly
do something. It might be harder than you thought, might take more pieces than you thought you were going to be involved with,
right.
which happens a
Exactly.
lot every day. But
Yes.
but in
Yeah.
the end, yeah, what new thing, and I look at my father-in-law jumping jumping out of a plane. I said, was that on your bucket list? And he said, I didn't have a bucket list, but
Yeah.
it ended up on the bucket list, and that was okay. And then, the zip line after that was nothing. But,
Yeah.
hitting the zip line, I'm not sure I want to jump out of a plane, but the zip lines are so fun, so
Oh yeah.
incredibly fun. But how many people are just afraid to let their feet come off the surface of the platform and
Uh-huh.
trust, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, and then what's happens when you have that freedom? It's just so amazing.
You're right. Definitely
Yeah.
right. I think it helps to have um, people of all different ages. Before we broadcast, you said something about a bunch of musicians came to your house and things just came together because some younger person was having a birthday. And I think it's important to include people of different, not just younger, but sometimes older people in your cadre of friends, because they open up your ideas or your thinking, and everybody's not just doing it the same way, the same time, that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's something interesting in the people that I spend time with who want to grow old in their own home, and
Right.
then they're isolated. Now, COVID did a big job in creating isolation.
Oh yeah.
Um, but then looking at, isolation means you do notice every ache and pain. You do have to do all the tasks in the house.
Right.
You don't have that connection with people that lifts you up out of the chair. And so I really watch those people that they want to stay in the homestead. They want to be in the place where they were born. But in
Mm.
that process of making that decision, they have now isolated themselves. And in some cases, that takes the energy and the health out because they struggle to just do the most basic things in the day. Whereas
Yep.
if they had chosen to go to a place where they had people around them, somebody's knocking on the door at 8 in the morning to say, do you want to go for a walk? Someone else
Right.
is saying, do you want to play cards? Are you going to be coming down for the jam session? And you might have said no, but because somebody came to the door, you're going to go. And now
Right.
all of a sudden you have a completely different life. And it's got so many other things in it that just staying in your home to stay in your home doesn't provide you.
Uh-huh.
So it's an interesting conversation, and I don't think people are thinking in those terms so much when they're making those choices.
And it kind of in a way connects up with some of the grief things we talked about last time, because usually when a spouse dies, then somebody steps up into that position, either the daughter or the son or whatever, and then they start making all these decisions for the person that's left behind. And there you are, you're vulnerable, you're thinking, oh, I just lost half of my duo here, and what can I do, what can I not do? And sometimes they don't get a chance to really chew on that and figure out what do they want, what do they not want.
Hmm.
And it's nice if you have an older friend that can say, well, let's sit down, talk about this,
Hmm.
just like you're saying, what do I want, what am I going to do, how am I going to do things in the most um, personally, body, mental, spiritual kind way, rather than how quickly and efficaciously can I get this job done and be done with it.
Hmm.
It's a completely different mindset.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Yes.
it makes everything so much. I keep saying to my husband every day, I can't believe how enjoyable life is. All these years I've been ahead in the books and the doctor and the mother and the wife. And I said, this is the first time I've had so much time to think, well, what does Marianne want? I mean, that has not really been a topic in the conversation very much.
Hmm.
So I really like it. And he's very good at saying, yeah, but what do you want? And that, having the space to think about that, and uh, someone else to talk to about how you might get what you want, or how we include that under our wing to get going, it makes a big difference.
Hmm.
It's much
Hmm.
more enjoyable every day.
And when you're looking at, so if you've got those people who are coming up to retirement, who are in those roles and have not spent the time, it can be really alarming.
Terrifying.
Somebody had said, you have your retirement party on Friday, and on Monday you're retired, and then you go, now what? Like, because
Yes.
you weren't prepared for that. You're still playing all the roles ahead of
Right.
that.
Right.
And that now you're there. So in that case, what kinds of things could you bring for people to start thinking about and make that transition a little easier?
Yeah, I mean, people were like, well, what are you going to do if you're going to retire? I said, I have so many things I would love to do. I want to do some painting. I want to do some ceramics. I just have a million things that I would like to do that I've never been able to do.
Hmm.
And I never thought one of them would be writing a book. So and then from writing the book to this, going around the country lecturing on finding joy after loss or trauma, I never saw that coming. Never saw it coming. But when I realized what a need there was, I was like, oh well, this is something I need to do. I'm good at it.
Hmm.
Um, and I never really traveled much. So this is, we did crazy travel this year. We went to Italy for 3 weeks. We went to Kenya on safari for 2 weeks. We really did a little too much traveling this year. We need to do a little more staying at home and getting a little more grounded. But it's that balance. Sometimes you just have to try things and see if it works out or not.
Hmm.
And if it doesn't work out, it's still a great learning lesson. You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
so you
Yeah.
can't.
And like you said, too, to be able to be on a tour with your book and talking about something that you have a lot of knowledge in, but the freedom now to just reflect on it, bring forward what was most important, and let go of those roles that were
Mm-hmm,
all tied up in what you were doing.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. So I think the last time when we were talking, I was saying, I don't care anymore. I'm not Dr. Betty. So I don't have this professional image that I have to uphold.
Hmm.
So and I tend to laugh and tell jokes a lot. And I can laugh at myself. So, far from perfect, but I mean, I just feel like, hey, what the heck? Why not?
Hmm. Yeah.
Try it, do it, say yes, go there. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So as you're putting the pieces together for this next book, are there a couple surprises that have come forward?
Um, yeah, there has been. The, actually, I have a couple of books on my mind, but the first book I have to write is about some of these fabulous patients that I have had who over the years, you get to know them almost like family, and they have shared some of um, what I consider the best part of medicine, which is the more intimate. This I was presented with this dilemma, and this is how I made my choices, and this is where those choices led me. And I just was telling my husband, because he was in the military, so he goes to the VA for his health care, and he had never had a family doctor before, didn't really have any idea what they did. So I would tell him little pieces about stories of patients without their names, of course, and just tell him this and that happened. And he was so amazed. He said, "You have to write a book about this, because these stories are inspirational and people need inspiration now."
Mhm.
And so I'm in agreement with that, especially as I read the papers more every day. I'm reading less and less because I get pretty upset over some of the stories in the paper, and so I'm thinking this is all pushing me to get these stories written down. I have about 10 people that I think have over the top inspirational stories, and I'm hoping this winter to get them down. That's my
Beautiful.
goal.
Beautiful. Um, I was lucky enough to visit, we had Michelle Obama was actually in the
Oh,
province doing a talk, and I've enjoyed watching the way she has graced through her changes in life and career and where she's at. And one of the really interesting things about listening to her presentation was the way each of the messages were weaved within the story.
hmm,
So you can have somebody who can tell you, you should be doing these kinds of things or watch out for this, but that'll quickly go out of your mind. But a story
you've got.
always stays right there. And it
Yep.
gives you so many levels of life changes that you can reflect on. And as you keep going back to the story, you can start to look at how those pieces, depending where you are. So you might be on one level at one point, but you might go back to that story again and go, oh, I hadn't thought of that. And it's now taking you on another journey. Yeah.
Or suddenly something that someone has done that has always been kind of a little perplexing to you, like why would they have done that, or how did they get there? Suddenly it comes out in a story, and you realize, oh, that's why that person did that.
Hmm.
So that's so I putting those pieces together and the understanding of that and why people make those choices, I think that's fascinating.
Hmm. Hmm.
Gives you insight into human behavior that you don't get without the stories.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And it's really interesting to think about the medical model, because we're always thinking about whether the medical model served us well or it didn't serve us well.
Right.
But if you think about the stories that someone who works in the medical model hears and grows with,
Hmm.
and in their career, like what you're talking about, and because it's very busy when you're in the hospital dealing with many patients at a time and trying to serve all those patients and make sure you got them where they needed to go. And it's a completely different thing to be able to look back on a career and
Yes.
see the weaving of what happens and what happens for people as they interact in and out of a system, and
Hmm.
what they do with themselves. Because even too, those people that were successful in achieving health out of what they were looking for, and those people that maybe didn't, and what happened in there, what were those thought processes, and you get to see that weaving. It's interesting to think of the medical personnel in that capacity, in the storytelling way.
Right. Right. And when you get to the point where you can concentrate on the stories, then at least you can let go of some of the technical scientific terms and stuff, and put that aside, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And the same for too, what is the protocol that you're supposed to follow? How do things need to go? And then all the background stuff you have to keep track of. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating. I had no idea there were so many moving parts going on. And now I really enjoy time to just sit still and meditate on, mostly I meditate on trees, because I don't know, I have this thing about trees, how much I love trees. And I'll look at them and I'll just get stories coming from, from out of the thin air, it seems like.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's wonderful to have a chance to have things bubble up rather than always shoving everything in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's back to the elbow business,
Yeah. Yeah.
letting it out.
Yeah.
Going,
And I'm thinking about how that changes conversations that seniors have with family members or friends who are younger, who are taking those stories in. And for them, because it's easy to say, oh, I did that when I was younger, and oh, I
uh-huh,
had a career in that, and
uh-huh,
oh, and they hear the same story over, right? 10 times.
yes.
That happened before, and you think, yes, grandma, you told me that one before.
Mhm.
We tell those stories because they're sitting there, but to be able to take, like you said, that reflection time and sit in the story for a little while and find out more in depth about that story, some
Mhm.
of the pieces that may have got lost in you wanting to keep the details straight instead of how you felt or how things changed or your experience. Sometimes it's with pets. That's a huge piece too, what that pet meant, how those stories evolve.
And the focus then goes over to that, to the feelings that you were left with, or the insight or understanding you got out of the story. So if the story isn't exactly, you know exactly correct, it's more like the real gist of it, the real meat of the story that stays with you.
Mhm.
And um, and I, and I like that. I like storytelling. I think it's the best way we learn. The
Mhm.
best.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm. It's beautiful.
it's great.
Ah, so you are on a journey here doing some more speaking engagements, right?
Yes, yes. On Sunday, I'm going to be speaking outside of Atlanta to the Georgia family physicians, finding joy after loss. It's been well received, and spoken in maybe 5 other state chapters so far to the family docs. But I've also spoken to nurse practitioners, residents. I'll talk to anybody. I
Perfect.
really, I really enjoy it. I learn something every single time.
Yeah. And do you just want to name the books that you have got published? So in case people are looking for those.
Okay. The first one was called Living with a Dead Man. That's by me, Marianne Bette. It's available on Amazon, Goodreads, and emeraldlakebooks.com, which is my publisher. And the second, which that story is about my first husband, who was a death and dying therapist, about his death and how all the wonderful choices that you can have at the end, and the insights and the wrapping up. And boy, he sure did that right. So I had to write that book. And then the second book is the one we've been referring to, called Living with a Grieving Heart, with the emphasis on living. Because when you lose someone, when I heard this phrase and I'm going to use it, when someone takes a piece of your heart and they leave, you don't get all the pieces back. So you're going to reconstruct yourself. And um, in my opinion, you may as well do it in the most kind and positive way that you can, so you can enjoy the rest of your life, and hold on to the memories. You don't have to get rid of memories. Those are precious.
Hmm.
So that's the two books: Living with a Grieving Heart, Living with a Dead.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And so you two said Emerald Lake Books is your
Right,
publisher. So when they go to emeraldlakesbooks.com, then they can
mhm,
see your name there and those
right,
books pop up.
yes,
Yeah. And
yes,
then,
beautiful.
and you like to connect with people on Instagram. So if they want to
I
find you,
do,
it's there.
I do Instagram. I'm still have much to learn about Instagram, but I still have to figure out how to get the last podcast we did on my Instagram page. But I do a lot of reposting of inspirational sayings, of beautiful pictures of nature, a lot of with animals, sea creatures, um, old people dancing. I mean, anything that I think is just enlightening and fun. I put it on, and sometimes I'll post 2 or 3 times in a week, and then maybe 5 days will go by and I won't post anything. But I don't know. I have 1,000 followers or something, and it's just fun. It's just
Mhm.
fun. You can look at it. There's no politics, no religion. You're just gonna see something that's gonna be fulfilling and enjoying.
Mhm. Beautiful. That's
And
wonderful.
I'll answer people. I mean, they can send me comments on that, and I'm happy with that.
Beautiful. Excellent. Well, thank you for spending the time weaving us through the news stories and aging gracefully where we need
Oh,
to
it
head.
was so much fun. I'm trying to figure out something else we can do because I just don't want to let go of you, darling. It's too much fun. I said to my husband, we have to go to Cape Breton next spring. I got to go see Michelle in person.
Yes, you definitely need to come up. We'll be happy to have you here in Cape Breton. So for those
Oh,
people who are listening and who want to travel this direction, we have what's called Kitchen Fest, which happens usually at the beginning of July, which is all the local musicians who are world renowned. They will be playing in different venues all over the Cape Breton Island. And then in the fall, around our Thanksgiving, which is at the beginning of October, we have our Celtic Colors Festival, which is 10 days. There is music all summer long up and down the island, which is lovely too. But those are two of the festivals for people that are interested in music. But yeah, it's always delightful. You want to wait, we don't have a really strong spring, I guess. It kind of jumps into summer. So
okay.
June and July is always lovely, and then our fall. Right now the trees, we're in November recording this. So for those people listening, we have these beautiful Celtic colors. All the maple trees, we have oranges, browns, yellows, bright reds. It's just amazing in October. But right now, all the larch trees have just changed. So all their needles are bright yellow next to the spruce trees, which are all dark green. And it's just spectacular to look at the water and these two contrasting colors that come out.
And the larch trees, they're deciduous, right? They're an
Yes.
evergreen that is deciduous.
And then they lose their needles at the end of the season. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, just since you're interested in trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, I know we'll have another topic that'll come forward, and when your book is ready to go, and the essence of the book has found its way into your writing, then I know that that'll be a big deal for where we can head next. So thank
Can't
you,
wait.
Marianne.
Thank you, darling. It's such a pleasure talking to you. It just is so much fun.
Beautiful. All right. So, season 3, we've been devoted to the transformational process that happens when people reach into their authentic selves and create magic. And our season has had several different publications that happen through the month. The start of the month is something to do with the work that I do and how I can bring that forward. And then in the middle, I have guests that appear. And at the end of the month, my sister Charlene Waynes comes on and we talk about her mission to support a family in Malawi, the Moyo family. And we do updates with them, but we also bring about different ideas of how we can help other people. And you and I talked about it already today, Marianne, with the kinds of questions you can ask before you go to assist someone, or the way that you can approach the conversation if you need assistance or you think you've got it covered. My sister is great at asking really good questions to get at the right answers.
Oh, I'm
And
gonna listen. Yeah.
yeah, so it's always fun because where her head goes and how she figures things out is amazing. And she's figuring things out in another country, in things that, we don't really understand, and how things need to be.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's so enlightening for that. So we break down the month so people have different ways that they can engage with the podcast. And so we hope that that's meeting the needs. And at the end of the podcast, we always try to do some kind of movement, so that we started with an affirmation, we had our tea, we had our conversation, and now we want to get active so that we've put that into flow and people can really feel like they've been rejuvenated. Do you have anything you want to share? I know you've talked about a couple things already on the podcast, but.
Well, what I do whenever we're traveling and we stop, I do 10 deep knee bends, just balance deep knee bends. So that might be 5 or 10 times a day. And I think it's essential because it keeps my legs and everything sharp. Balance is essential. As you get older, it kind of goes sideways. So you got to keep perfecting it.
Mm-hmm. And
I would
as
say
you
10 knee deep bends.
So as you were saying that, I was looking at my notes to see what did I write down, because I always try to prepare what my movement is going to be. And I had put in there the Donu, the seated Donu, and then there's a seated to standing Donu. And that is a knee bend, but it's one with an open back. And so it gives you a chance to change for some people who may be really tight in the hips, to be able to open and change the hips. So I would invite you to check that out on my YouTube channel, which is at Michelle Greenwell. And you go to the list because it has several playlists. So for seniors who are looking, that can be overwhelming with lots of playlists. You're looking for Tai Chi Wellness. And when I was on my phone today looking it up, it was the very last playlist. So you may
Okay.
have to scroll to the bottom. So I'll just say that. But that one is fantastic for just about everything. So, and when you're in the car and you're trying to get that little bit extra, sometimes in the car you could just do just the hands. That'd be very helpful. So, yeah. Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And we wish you well. Take care.
Bye bye now.